And we're recording. All right, Nick,
Okay.
I'm totally not giving you all the credits that you deserve, but everybody knows you from the years, so just take it away. Let's
Yeah, it's
get
been a
right
long
to it.
time doing this, huh?
Yeah.
Good people. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I got lots of slides, so I'll probably move reasonably fast. Okay, hi, I'm Nick from Thornton Tomasetti Core Studio. A little background on who we are. So Thornton Tomasetti is a structural engineering firm, although it has many practices, transportation, etc. We are considered part of the R&D group inside of Thornton Tomasetti. So our goal is to investigate new technologies, try and develop new workflows, build tools for people inside Thornton Tomasetti. This is the team. Although these days we also have a pretty big presence in Mumbai as well, because TT has an office there and we have a number of developers working out of that office. I think we're about 30 people at this point. You can ask ChatGPT what we do, and it gives a pretty good overview. Essentially, we develop custom software and tools to assist design analysis and optimization of not always complex structures, sometimes just regular buildings as well. Today, I'm going to talk about three things primarily. I'm going to talk a little bit of workflow conversation that's related to the JFK project, how TT leveraged Airtable to help automate markup management. I'm also going to talk about Ellipse, which was something I mentioned last year to this group, which is something that Core Studio has been building for a number of years. It's sort of our concept of what the next level of BIM might be if we were to move past something like Revit. And then I'm going to give some symposium and hackathon overviews. I should say most of the work I'm presenting today is not my own work, so I'm going to do my best to answer questions where I can, but in particular with some of the hack projects, it's some complex stuff. So see how it goes. Okay, so JFK. Big project, fast track design, big team, bi-weekly deadlines, big set, only modelers allowed in the model, and an inherited project file. So a big problem for TT to begin with, I guess, or an opportunity is a better way to describe it. The team was obviously very large for this, but I've actually got Adrian Paulino here from Thornton Tomasetti, who was the project lead. Glad to have you here, Adrian. Also want to mention Anna, who was also integral in this process, and the whole team that we worked with. So Thornton Tomasetti had a lot of subcontractors involved in this, and we had BIM modelers in the office working with us. So you can imagine how complicated the organization was to try and track and manage this project. All right, so typical process for markups is what we're talking about here. Nothing too fancy. You know, a modeler gets requested. There are multiple offices working on this project, so understanding who was available at what time was not an easy thing. The markup was sent via email. Each office does scheduling differently. Essentially, there's lots of bullet points here that make this a hard problem to manage. The first concept for the solution here that was developed by the team inside of TT was to try and leverage Bluebeam, the new Bluebeam Studio feature, which is multiple users editing a single file all at once. Sounds really great, but didn't really pan out that well on this project. So Bluebeam Studio sessions, weekly prints of drawings, new sessions each week. Markups were done by the engineers directly in the single Bluebeam file. And then essentially the modeler would come in and find a markup and complete that markup. So the single source of truth was the Bluebeam file in this case. Microsoft Teams used for coordination. Lots of problems with this process, lots of confusion, trouble implementing standards across multiple offices, sometimes conflicting markups, lack of consistency, generally just the sort of things you run across on a huge project with a fast schedule, and everybody's stressed and it's difficult to get things sort of accurate. So the concept was to try and leverage Airtable. I haven't done much work with Airtable myself, but again, this is essentially just a web-hosted database that ties into an email service. So you can create markups, assign markups, etc., and it can all be handled through a web service as opposed to sort of the standard Excel sheet list of modelers that most people were using at that point. It also had the feature, well, some of the features of Airtable they used in this project. So there was tracking and distribution. You could check the history of markups. Certain areas of the building were assigned ownership by certain people. So there was more of a clear understanding about what people were intended to actually work on. There was a process implemented for back checking and having second round markups completed and checked. Daily prints, all still uploaded to Bluebeam project, but not necessarily used as a collaboration tool. Eventually, there was an integrated form in Teams that allowed any emails, etc., messages coming from Airtable to be sort of pop-up messages for people. And we also removed all the engineers out of the model, which I'm sure Adrian was a big fan of. Just modeler access at this point. I think we had a big enough team of modelers to make it work. Yeah, we did all the hard work already. Okay. So this is the general sort of just workflow process here, right? I mean, essentially what you see is we had a system to do this, and there were lots of email checks along the way. Once a markup's created, you got to request the modeler. The management gets an email. Somebody gets assigned the request. It's tracked, et cetera, et cetera. There was a process for back checking all of these markups. Even that tended to lead to some problems as well. So, you know, the process that was proposed wasn't quite ideal. Back checks weren't as consistently filled as they should have been. There was the volume of work essentially became too much for the team. I think at this point, the number of markups coming in from different offices made the amount to do sometimes too much. And obviously, with most projects in the building world, it comes in waves, right? When's the deadline? A month from now, okay, we'll do the work 3 weeks from now, right? So that's how it tends to work. I think in this case, the key thing that wasn't being assigned here was priority. So there wasn't sort of a layer of what should be done first and what should be done last. Everybody's problem on this project needed to be done straight away because it's a big, serious project with hardcore timelines. So the fix was a person, essentially, Anna, who essentially, from what this wasn't an official layer that was built into the Airtable per se, but there was a column in Airtable that was Anna's column. And I'm told that the modelers only paid attention to that column by the end of the project. They weren't looking at priority assignments from other offices. They were using Anna to filter those requests and give them a priority. That sort of skipped the need for Anna had her own little column in the table, and she was assigning priority, and models were picking that up. Knew that was not going to play, so I put the videos on my desktop. I do have a couple of video demonstrations of this working, so we should have a look. So obviously, you know, it's graphically, it's still a very complicated thing to look at, right? But this is the sort of process you get involved in here. A huge table. Every row here is a markup. So every row is created by request. You have assignments. Like I said, it's all a web tool. You create who requested the markup, you give it a priority, you give it a package. Essentially, it's a table, a web table for you to input information that can be useful for everybody on the project. Just a really big project. So create a request. Which package is it being sent to? I should say here that whilst this is being made, there wasn't any, technical tie to the Revit file. This is all just people doing their job. This is assisting in the fact that the organization is done through a web service as opposed to, truthfully, it's still Excel tables in a lot of the offices of who's available. So you create a request, then you have a status view. There's lots and lots of views here. Who's assigned to it? Obviously, like I said, at every point here, someone's generally getting an email saying, hey, heads up, somebody's giving you a new task for this particular area. Just keep moving through here. So creation of the markups, you're attaching files as well in this case. So this was actually, I think he was just showing a text file being added, but most of the time I believe it was actual PDFs, right, with markups on top of them for people to look at. And a back check table. So beyond just the regular assignments, there was sort of that second second review step. If a markup had been created, someone had fixed it, it'd come back around, somebody had to then be assigned to check that markup had been. That was also, in this case, done through a web form where you could then verify that the thing was done. I think that was a screen grab most of the time, just of the particular region. And then once it's done, it's stored, right? So this is a web database, which means anything you do is generally timestamped and still sitting there in the background for you if you want to go back and look at it in the future. In this case, I think it wasn't used that much to go back and review things, but it's really a paper trail, I think is the best way to describe this. A markup paper trail, where you can, if you needed to, you could track back and find out who in particular had modeled the wrong beam, maybe specifically. But here's the history of that particular event. All those things tracked for us. So, I mean, not simplifying what was a complicated multi-office problem, but still making us a reasonably complicated system for someone to have to build, right? So this is our BIM team, basically setting up a system so that their job would be easier and everybody's job on the project would be easier. So there is some upfront effort here, but I know that other projects saw this and have immediately started trying to use it as well, which is the best result for anything that we do usually. Most of the time it's a prototype. We try and build it the first time, and the best use case is the second use, because that's when we really find out the bugs in the first one that we didn't see. Okay. All right, doesn't like any of my videos, but that's okay. We got all of them here. So like I said, there was a Microsoft Teams implementation here of this. So excuse me, in the BIM coordination channel for the JFK project, they were able to set up a view of the Airtable, right? So directly inside of Teams, where most people in our office these days are working, communicating, you could see all that stuff without having to go to the website. So nothing fancy there, just sort of putting the information where the people who are actually needing to use it work. And okay, and lastly, but not least, not utilized on this project in particular, but there is a Power BI integration for Airtable. So the theory here being that now that we're tracking the markups, maybe we can use that data on a project over the history of a project to understand more about when things went wrong, when things went right, where there might have been, problems with the system we set up. And basically, this is the project here, right? This is the number of markups, and I believe this is the foundation number of markups, right? So just looking at that graph, you can tell that there was a big deadline somewhere around here, right? People were doing a lot of work on the foundations. And in terms of markups, the foundations were far and away the most remarked up or the most touched object in the file. You wouldn't think so, right? Foundations are sort of mostly simple. They just concrete underneath everything.
Now we are working with what's it called? We are trying to fix all the foundation based on whatever is
in the field. Okay, so I mean, yeah, that little purple line is telling you that the real world is different than your model, basically. Right.
So I'm assuming that right now is the most touched things, but in the future, when we move to the framing, then those markers are going to increase.
Yeah, and I think it is. Yeah, so there's just again, it wasn't particularly used on this project, but there is a little clip here of you can start to see who things like who did the most markups, who did this particular markup. Okay, well, we might skip the Power BI video if it's not going to play. Give it one more chance.
You see?
The question was, have we explored using AEC Construction Cloud for markup tracking? We did not. Like I said, this wasn't tied to the model. It was sort of a layer on top. it sounds like you can do this sort of same process now in Construction Cloud.
I think the issue with the construction cloud is that engineers are not very familiar with how it works. So I think they prefer Bluebeam Studio or Airtable.
In terms of creation of the markup.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the reason why we moved to Airtable was because we just have one file, and then all the markup were done there, and it was kind of difficult to track who did it or who back check or. So then we use Airtable, which I think it is cool.
Okay. So yeah, sounds like that's not a good sound.
And so the Airtable, you have the benefit that you can create a small markup and it is easier to track.
Yeah.
So
I mean, these were huge Revit files, I will say. So getting an engineer to actually want to go in and touch it was a big deal. I think by the end of it, like I said, they weren't even allowed in the model, right? But anyway, yeah, no, it's a good question. In this case,
Let me get to the microphone. So the question was about Autodesk Construction Cloud. I'm not the biggest fan of it. But the interface for somebody who's not tech literate is actually working quite well. I've got a partner architect who is literally tech illiterate, wouldn't know how to spell BIM if you wrote it down for him. And he is all over the ACC cloud looking at and issuing the most asinine little comments. And he figured that out. And so from that point of view, like engineers in your workflow, engineers who don't want to touch Revit, that ACC thing works. It's really quite intuitive. There's other downsides like your back checking and the spreading with the email. That integration isn't quite there yet. But the ease of use for the non-Reviteer is actually quite good, I have to admit.
Yeah.
And I'm on the downside of that.
look, I'm not for adding layers of software to a problem. Certainly, if ACC does it, I'd give it a shot. In this case, you guys liked it, and other people are liking it. It might just be that we haven't taught people how to use ACC Cloud.
it is easier. I think it is easier to receive a PDF and just hold on it if you need to, and just go to make that markup through ACC. So
Well, there's still lots of clicks, right, at this point in all of this process. That video is not going to play. Just keep going. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about here is Ellipse. So for those of you who might have attended last year, you saw me give a preview of it. This is something, like I said, course video we've built in-house. This is the culmination of a couple of different things that we've built over the years. We built something called Mirar maybe 10 years ago that was looking at just putting models on the web, just visualizing a 3D model on the web. We built something called Design Explorer, which was about investigating parallel coordinate design spaces, basically tables on the web with graphics attached to it. And recently, we've also been, not taking a step back, but thinking about how 2D information can be integrated into Ellipse. So we'll talk about Ellipse. Ellipse is a web app that we've built as a platform to host BIM data. So collaborative, all the things you hear about with AEC industry, ease of access, single source of truth, all the fun words. So Ellipse consumes information. Most of the stuff that we deal with in our projects are things like files, data, models, drawings, real world environments through GIS maps and images. Ellipse can consume all of these. The moment we have uploaders from Revit, Rhino, Grasshopper, and Excel, we're aiming to expand to Tekla. So it's not a creator of information necessarily. It's more a interpreter and visualizer of information. And we're positioning it here in the middle of all these people who work on all the projects that we build and who, generally speaking, all need access to the same information, but get it from multiple sources most of the time. So we're trying to access sort of this level of approach where many people can access the same information, but only what they need for the model, even though there might be more there. You can sign up, give Ellipse a test. Feel free to take a picture of this. I think the slides are going to be shared later. So here's a couple of little GIF videos. So essentially, just to describe what it is, what we're looking at is a website that is based on a Revit model that was uploaded to Ellipse. So you're going to see Revit views. You're also going to see a 3D view on the left, which is the sort of Ellipse view. And what we're pointing out here is all the information is still tied together. Just like Revit, when you click on one object in one place, you're looking at on that same object in every view that that model or object exists in. At the same time, BIM information is what the key to all of this. So we have access to all the parameters, et cetera, that were present in the model that was uploaded as well. So you can start to do things once you have this sort of set up. And I will say, you know, a really savvy Revit user could probably figure out how to make some really nice filters and color buys and particular views to sort of mimic some of this interface. But our goal here is that, you know, a pro user builds the interface and then nobody has to do any work after that, right? And the next time you upload a Revit model to Ellipse, you can do the same query just through a text input. So we're looking at a 3D view where you can type in, show me all the structural objects, and it will highlight the structural objects. Show me all the concrete objects. We'll highlight the concrete objects. Just pointing out that we have access to the data and the objects concurrently at the same time. So as I said, this was actually a Revit upload. So what you're looking at here is a 3D Ellipse view of the model. So when we upload to Ellipse, we capture all the geometry of the objects. We visualize that with the right thicknesses and all the properties. But we also upload the 2D views from Revit. So that's actually just an isometric view from the Revit model. In the background, these are still all tied together inside of Revit. So they're still all tied together inside of Ellipse. The data in the model is still tied to the 2D drawings. So you can create a filter in the 3D view, and it will apply to the 2D view at the same time. We have a commenting system in Ellipse as well. You got to be able to make a markup for somebody to do, right? So this one is object-based. I can click on an object in the view inside of Ellipse, and I can assign a comment to it. I can make changes to that comment. I can upload a file. Many of the things you just saw with Airtable can be done with Ellipse as well. And I guess we're thinking of it as, you know, multi-user, multi-industry. So there are sort of, you could build your own interface for the architect client. You could build your own interface for the engineer client, your own interface for the actual owner as well. Depending on what information they want to see, you can allow or deny access to all that information. So in this case, we're drilling down into all of the family information that's attached to it. And like I said, the 2D views are still zoomable, right? So when we upload, the 2D view is still present as a CAD object with a database in the background. So you can still sort of select anything and view by their attributes. This is how it works from Revit. So, I mean, we do leverage the fact that what we get from Revit is a highly detailed information heavy model, right? So you can choose which views you want to upload, which drawings you want to upload, which sheets you might want to upload. Those 3 object types can be uploaded to Ellipse. At the same time, all the objects that are in those views, we capture all their properties. As I said, that's sort of the juice behind Ellipse. And just a side note, we actually do capture all of the objects from the Revit model through Rhino.inside's implementation. So all those objects actually get made as 3DMs that gets used by Ellipse. I know it's weird, but we like Rhino's kernel better than we like Revit's. So there's an exporter, right? You have to actually have a model first. Like I said, Ellipse is not an authoring platform. It's about showing you information. This was sort of, you know, imagine if in Revit you could have every sheet open in the project in one view and be able to filter by a single attribute through all those sheets. This is what we're showing here with this floor plate analyzer, right? These are all the floor plates of this twisty tower, color by the view, color by the 2D view as well. I think in our minds, you know, there is a view of a structural model that is every sheet all at once in a single 2D plane. That's sort of what we're trying to emulate here. Well, this is the upload I saw previously. I mean, again, like I said, all these things are linked together, right? The Ellipse view plus, so this is again a combination of a 3D view of the model in the web plus a 3D view that was uploaded directly from Revit. All the objects are still connected. This is a nice one that sort of points out where we're going here with the fact that, maybe in the future, we can have drawings that have color on them. And maybe that's a useful feature. So in this case, this is the 3D ellipse view. This is the 2D shear wall drawing that TT made. And we're able to do stuff like color by the property, heat transfer coefficient of those concrete objects, and also show that in the 2D view. Again, technically, you could probably pull this off in a single Revit file, but you'd have to be a pro user, and it's not going to look just like this, right? So I think the real key for us is going to be the point where we start to do intelligent 2D drawings. We've been doing 3D for a long time. This color by certain attributes is useful for engineers. We have models that have lots and lots of really important information that is properties on an object. It's not graphically present, right? How do you show the camber? No one's modeling the camber. It's an attribute, but you can color by, and you can see where the deep cambers are and where the shallow cambers are by the color. That same sort of argument can apply to drawings, right? So in this case, well, you can do more than just color by particular attributes. This one's sort of a QA/QC view, right? So show me who modeled this object. Who was the user who added it to the file? Similar to what the Airtable was doing about assigning regions. This is one is actually picking up which user created the object in the Revit file. Color by creator. Or color by changed by. Who changed the object since the last upload? Who made the change in that particular place? We also really like the concept of dynamic annotation, sorry. So, as a structural company, we make these drawings that have tons and tons of text on them, right? The size, the forces, all that information. At the end of the day, sometimes this would be better served just being in a table somewhere, but we still have to tag it. In this case, because the information is on the object, you can create the sort of markup you need or the information you need specifically by the data that's present. So any information on the object can be tagged just like in Revit, but this is just a little bit more user-friendly for about what's being shown and what's not. In the future, we would love to deliver, models to fabricators where we didn't make tag drawings. We just gave them a model and a table. That's sort of what the concept here is. Or we just give them an ellipse project. All the information is already there for them to download if they need to. I spoke about the commenting process already, so I might skip this particular slide. This is an example of what might be the landing page, right? So again, this is just a image with a 3D view with some text added to it. And in the background of that, you can add all the other information. So this is a pre-built ellipse project that includes 3D and 2D views. And these are pages that are pre-built. So show me the 2D drawings, show me the 3D and 2D setup. You can reorder these things. This is a pretty familiar interface these days on the web, dragging around setting up your own interface, locking it for the next user to interact with. We've got tons and tons of widgets. So tables, value lists, 3D viewers, all the little boxes on the screen have their object types in the background. So that's Ellipse. Like I said, we've been working on this for many years now. It's sort of our bet on where transfer of project information might go in the future beyond drawings. We still think they're going to be created, but maybe there's a better way to interact with them. To me, printing out a drawing set, you've lost all the data that was attached to those objects as soon as you print it into a page. So that last step seems to be a hurdle that we should try and avoid having to jump over.
So how do contractors interact with this level of receiving? Does Turner still prefer 500 sheets of paper sitting on the desk?
I think that they still contractually prefer 500 pieces of paper on a desk. But I think what we're trying to do, and we understand that when we work with fabricators, most of the time they're not using our model because they don't trust it. They'll rebuild it right? Based on the drawings, probably, right? Someone's having to go through and interpret it. So this is sort of a baby step to not doing that. Like at least give a level of, we're going to give you this digital model that is our model for all intents and purposes, has all the information. Technically, it has everything in the 500-page drawing set, right? There's a world in which we don't print that out, and you trust the model that we give you has the information that you need. At that point, the way they would review it is good interoperability. They just sort of import it and it's got all the information. Or they use that as a means of rebuilding and not the drawing set.
I think contractors usually design to avoid.
But they know better than you, basically.
They know their money better than, and every elbow saves them $1 So in plumbing, we see that a lot. Do you see that as much in structure, or do they actually buy, or do they find efficiencies through interpreting and remodeling?
I think there are more and more projects these days. Like in the past, I think when TD sent out some drawings, that's what they expected got built, right? Because somebody stamped it and said, "I did the math. This is going to stand up." More and more, I think our designs are being taken. They're buying the design and then paying somebody else to do it again a little bit, right? A different way. From my point of view, is if all we want to be is efficient with our transfer of information. Because it's effort for us to make a beautiful 500-page drawing set, right? And we've got this model that should have it all already. That, legally, contractually, it's still the right move probably, but even just conceiving of adding color to drawings as a useful layer filter. That's the hook I try and get people on, right?
Yeah, that's the digital.
Yeah. If you haven't got a printout, you've got an iPad. And if you've got an iPad, you've got.
If you want an iPad, color is beautiful. If you work with a print, color like tenfolds your price tag for the set, right?
I teach a construction documents class to architects, and for years I've been like, no color, no shading, right? You don't, yeah. But just this year, one of the other professors was like, we want to do some color on our drawings, and I feel like it's because maybe those professors are viewing the documents digitally more than they're viewing them on paper.
Professors, yes, but
it starts in the schools, right? Starts in the schools.
Trailer out of JFK financed by, Turner. They have, TV-sized iPad on which they mark up.
Yeah.
Right. Western Pennsylvania doesn't.
No.
Right. So.
No, but they probably have a Revit model, right, in Western Pennsylvania, maybe. And if they do, they could use Ellipse to share their information better than printing out a drawing. We're going to talk about the future here, man. We're going to talk about the future.
Future on.
Yeah. Now this is all the future here. So that was the present. Now I'm going to talk about AEC Tech Core Studio. I think I see a couple of attendees in the audience, so that's nice to see. Awesome. Thank you for being here. We've been doing this now 11 years, which is a long time. We do it in different places. We do it in different countries now as well. So recently we hosted one in Los Angeles. There's one in Barcelona in April. So if anybody's going to be in Europe and wants to go see AEC Tech Barcelona, I encourage you to come. This is based on a good relationship with Rhino, who have a lot of employees working out of Barcelona these days. Okay, this year we had 400 people from 165 companies from 19 countries. 10 virtual workshops and 12 in-person workshops. It was actually, almost a week worth of events for us to manage because we stretched it out a little bit. So on Friday, we did virtual workshops. This was just all MS Teams, join the meeting from wherever you are. The following week, on the Wednesday, we started with the tech crawl, which is essentially we take participants around to some of the local offices downtown. They get to see inside the office, get a presentation, which is really nice because you don't usually get to see inside of other offices, I find, in New York often. Then there was another series of workshops. These were in person. And then our general pitches, we follow the workshops with a symposium, which is a full day worth of presentations and talks. And then over the weekend, we do a hackathon, which is a bunch of people show up at our office, make teams, come up with ideas. And it's a big event, like I said, 400 people. It's almost a full-time job for us inside of Core Studio. These are all the sponsors. Thank you very much to everyone who helped out contribute this year. And so there's a lot of information here. I might skip through, but I wanted to put it all up because I feel like everyone can read for themselves and see things that are interesting to them. But the virtual workshops, like I said, were the first thing we did. There were 12 of them. Topics like speckle. I gave one on construe. Autodesk came in, pitched some design automation services. We also had Mustafa, who anybody who's used pollination or ladybug would know Mustafa. Shape Diver was presenting. We had an ellipse presentation. We're all about showing our own stuff at our own events. McNeil is a huge part of these events as well. We get a lot of support from them. They send developers, people who are building Rhino, to our events, which is really, really great. Omniverse was a new one this year. We haven't had them present before. Visualization primarily is their pitch. Grimshaw and Heatherwick. More workshops in this case, generative AI, the basics of machine learning. We have probably 4 or 5 now, machine learning experts inside of Core Studio who are basically building AI apps for us, but they're also really great at giving presentations in labs. Lots and lots of workshops, and then these are some of the people that we went and saw in the office department. I led the trip to up here. We're friends at Walter P. Moore, but I'd never been to SOM before. And that's a really nice office. I don't know if anyone's been up there, but wow. Working in engineering firms is great, but we don't get paid for our taste. That's a beautiful space. Like I said, it's fun to see how other people are working. I will say it's a little bit of, you go up and you see the presentation, you're like, we're doing the same thing, just over that building, different company. All right, so this year's symposium, like I said, this was all day Friday. We have sort of a series of morning presentations followed by a series of afternoon presentations. We try and mix up here between sort of architects and AEC industry, but also people like in the tech industry, basically people who are building apps for the AEC industry. So Snaptrude was basically someone who's, seen an opportunity in the AEC space and has built an app for it. And they came and presented. We also have a couple of our own presenters up here. I will say Philippe Bloch's presentation was very well received. He's a big name in the AEC industry. We're very happy he came and presented for our presentation. And then the afternoon, we got a little bit more heavy into the sort of tech side of things. So obviously Neil at SOM is talking a lot about their fantastic sort of parametric processes. But Marty from Schema, he's building, definitely go have a look at a video of Schema in operation. It's very impressive. It builds Revit models. For architects based on their existing library of Revit models. So it's smart enough to know how an architect builds a model and then build a new model based on the database. So highly recommend just having a look on YouTube at what Schema is doing. Super fun. And then Brian's presentation from Boston Dynamics was really cool. The one thing I remember from this day was a slide that Brian had in the sort of, he's working at Boston Dynamics these days. He came through the AEC industry to end up over there. But the coolest thing he thinks he's seen in terms of robotics or adaptive reuse was somebody's building a robot to chop up concrete walls and reuse them as bricks in other buildings. It seems really low tech, right? But the fact that all these buildings we build up generally get torn down in 10, 15 years, and that's all just trash is very depressing. So a robot that cuts up concrete core walls and makes new buildings from it was a really cool idea. Okay, speaking of cool ideas, so that was the symposium and sort of the preamble. Then we have the hackathon. So what I'm going to show you here are 3 slide decks from the winners. I think there were 16 different teams in this hackathon. So we're not going to get anywhere near all of the cool stuff that was built. I'm going to show the best overall hack, which was won by All the Way Down. Best open source hack was run by Rhino Anywhere, and the best collaboration was Fern E. I got one or two more honorable mentions. But as you can sort of tell, these are big teams, right? 24 hours, basically 6, 8, 10 people get together in a room and try to come up with a real thing. It's very impressive how much actually comes out of an event like this. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, because, well, I'm a Grasshopper fiend myself, so this was really cool to me. We had a team who put together an integration in 24 hours of ChatGPT and Grasshopper. This is the team. Sergey's part of Core Studio, and here's a little demo. So it's a component you sort of launch on the canvas with a text prompt. That was probably hard to read. I'll just let it play again. But basically it said, build me a tower with hexagonal format with these inputs. And then the, ChatGPT, because it actually knows a little bit about the Rhino interface as well as Grasshopper, is able to spit out some components that will build the thing you ask for in a text prompt. So this was technically twisty tower with a hexagonal base. And I double checked with the team here. This was legitimate. Sometimes you have teams doing a little bit of, magic with editing in the background, but I did confirm that they did implement this and it works pretty well. The latest implementation is up on Food for Rhino. So this was something that the people who worked on it actually made it free and available for other people to test. And I think I heard it's even being improved. Best collaborative project, Fern E. Having a cool logo and a nice slide deck is also part of a winning team here. This is the team. I don't actually have names for these guys, I don't think. But essentially their pitch was, generative AI. This was October last year, which was, getting a lot of press. And, the question was, all right, if it's making these images, what happens if I want something from this imaginary hallucination in the real world? How do I find that lamp or that weird down there? I actually just saw a recent ad from Google where I think you can do this. If you make a circle around something, it searches it.
Yeah.
Okay, so these guys built this back in October. They called it Fernie, and the intention was take a generative AI image and then identify those objects from the image and then find the nearest possible thing on the internet to that thing. And this is all about, live demo. So this is a web page they built. Give me a variety of interesting living room interiors, right? So essentially in this case, I think they tied back into Stable Diffusion in the background, and it makes these crazy things. They click on an object and they go and find something from a website that matches that. So, like I said, Google just released it recently. This was intended to be specifically for furniture, to help people find and identify particular furniture types. It was a nice demo. And I think that the tagline's good as well, right? Finding the real world from hallucinations. All right, so best open source and the winner of the category. These were workflow solutions, which is interesting. I think the year before was really heavy into AI. I think the winner the year before was a generative AI integration. But this year, the judges really liked people who were trying to make things like the Airtable project, just organize information better, find information better. Rhino Anywhere is leveraging something that we've been using in Core Studio for a while, the fact that you can now sort of compute geometry using Rhino's library on websites. So the pitch here is we can take Rhino and put any backend on it, any body on Rhino. There's lots of examples out there at the moment, like Shapediver, who we've partnered with, essentially allowing you to look at a web page that is computing Rhino commands in the background. Boolean the shape, make this curve, etc. It's all Rhino in the background, but it just shows up as a web page in the front. And again, the pitch here is that you can do it, everywhere at this point. On your watch, Rhino; in the fridge, Rhino; on your 3D VR, Rhino. Here's the team. There is a little bit of overlap here as well. You notice some of these pitches are the same across teams. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, something will crash and the pieces of one team will be merged with another team. And that was if anybody wants to look it up, all of this stuff is posted on GitHub. All the teams sort of come in knowing that any work they do is public. So they're sort of encouraged not to bring along proprietary cases, etc. That always means some interesting conversations, like what can you give us while we're here in the building? All right, best hack. I understand this one pretty well because it happens a lot on the projects I work on. It's called All the Way Down. Reactive data pipelines for iterative rapid design. Lots of words. Basically, it's intelligent file management. All right, so the rise of parametrics and curvy buildings has meant that people are building all these little intelligent scripts on their own machines. These things are hard to share, hard to understand who's got the latest version, etc. On a Twisty Tower project, there's usually multiple definitions that control the geometry. So there'll be something that's controlling the shape of the tower. There'll be then something that's building the facade division of the tower. And then beyond that, there might be a script that's instantiating a very specific facade system on the tower. And then beyond that, all the way down to fabrication, someone's hosting fabrication level shapes on that object. Complicated models, complicated processes, doesn't have to be a Twisty Tower. But what it leads to is something like this, right? Essentially lots and lots of independently developed, but theoretically tied together Grasshopper scripts. This piece is doing that, this piece is doing this, etc. All of this is, unfortunately, it's still, that's a GH file. There are ways of sort of streaming Grasshopper data, but the intention here was to sort of understand the connections between files and be able to then basically understand the links between each of these little cells and be able to either step forward, step back, and compute those files as needed. Central place. So this is the problem, right? Branching scripts. Someone's developing the base script that holds the tower, but by the end of it, once everybody's had a go at the parametric world, there's tons and tons of scripts, and this is a very complicated. So basically, looking at a graph-based version of all these scripts. Each script is a node. Each connection between scripts is an edge, and this gives you a graph network. Once you know the connections between files, if something changes in this file, you can listen to the change and update automatically in your file. This is trying to sort of put a layer of organization on top of a bunch of disparate Grasshopper files so that one person can click a button and compute their colleague's file and get the latest information from it. There's always an interesting tech stack involved in these. I won't spend too much time here. And yeah, lots of text file creation at the same time as well. So the format that's most popularly used by these developers, text files is very easy to create, very easy to read. So in this case, they were outputting from Grasshopper a text file that included the information they needed. At that point, they can then build this sort of graph of the different files to use. So I think this is a little demo file here. Interfaces are never well built here, but basically this is pointing here at different Grasshopper files on other machine. And they're able to say, go find this file and run it. Spit me back the information. Maybe your colleague went home for the night. They're not there to run the file themselves. You can grab it and get these computed and brought back to your own model. And the real clever part here is that only the things in your script, the only things that will change in your script are the things that changed in the other compute. All right, so here we go. There's a little demo. Build the graph. So that's going to show you all the information that connects all the scripts. And then it can then basically run through each of them sequentially. And again, like the key here is that these are located in different places, developed by different people. This is sort of trying to work towards the fact that at the moment, we still have a lot of a small number of pro Grasshopper users who build these scripts, but a lot of people who want to consume them, but don't necessarily want to look at the script. Right. So in a perfect case scenario here, the engineer never has to actually see the back end. They just get the information they need computed out the front. So, their goal here is more robustness and distributed workflows. It's sort of a tool built for the hackers, I will say. Most of the people that have this problem are the ones who are using Grasshopper in their firms. It doesn't have to be just for Grasshopper, right? I think people who use Dynamo would have the exact same problem, probably the same need to want to be able to compute files from different places. Cool. I believe that is, yeah, lots of slides, 92 slides. Thank you very much for bearing with me through all of that. Questions? Questions online? Questions in the room? I'll put, just because we'll use it as marketing, put the ellipse thing back up. You can all go.
Have you used this at TT?
The graph thing? No. Some of it, yeah. If I was on the team, maybe I'd be using it, but some of these things die pretty quickly after the weekend. Some of them live on, but so far we're using Speckle and Hops to do similar stuff, right? There's sort of a ways around it. It would be cool if there was a dedicated tool that did it, but I never thought Grasshopper would last this long. So the fact that people are now building platforms to host Grasshopper scripts is just wild to me. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm sure the same thing is would be useful in Dynamo. And there've been a different, about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a hack project that tried to do it. It was called Hydra, and they were trying to do web hosted. So all the Grasshopper lives on the web, and you just solve it from a web call. Yeah, people don't really dig it. They want to have their own inside my castle walls. Yep. That's fair enough.
Say you're using.
Yeah, we make it's a little cheeky, but if you looked at the preview there, when we uploaded, there's 3DM shapes get created. It would be meshes otherwise, which is what we did in the past. We compute meshes for all the shapes, but because we want to integrate with Rhino, we want everything to be a surface, a useful object type over there, not just I'm not to say meshes aren't useful, but they're overly complicated usually.
That last all the way down being useful part of the QA process.
Yeah.
If you know when you change the value by like 0.1 and then everything, you can just do that in the account the script templates, right?
It would be great to, yeah, track back who made the error. I mean, I would be scared of I don't know. I've never gone more than 3 steps removed from my own script. If further than that, it's like, wow, how are we speaking the same language at that point? I don't know. With great organization, I think.
With the airport project that you did, you said that the time constraints in terms of putting together the documents and getting it to the client is a lot crazier than it's ever been. What has made it so crazy, and are you getting financially compensated for it? Do they sort of think, oh, it's in the software, you don't have to?
I'm going to give you my opinion,
Yeah.
not the truth. I would say it does happen. Seems like more often than it used to. And in this case, it was an inherited model, right? So this was even more complicated in that it's like a renovation. It's not a new build as far as BIM goes, right? Somebody else has done the work. You're now coming in and have been hired to take it that last step. I'm sure Adrian is, you would rather build it from scratch than inherit a model, right? Right. And that's because
the issue with deadline was cool.
Yeah, you had to use their model, right?
I would prefer to.
Yeah. I think it's, the company is happy to throw manpower at it. I don't know if we're making tons of money off it, but it's a prestigious project. I think we did pretty well, to be honest. We wouldn't, We wouldn't take it otherwise. Like, we don't take projects which we lose money on. I know that for sure, no matter how big it is. And this one, we got a lot of experience with airports. We've also, I would say, okay, so maybe I'm tooting my own horn here. I think we do take more projects like this because our executives now think we've got this layer of automation in our company, where things that used to take a week now take an hour or a day. So I guess we're doing our job because I think a lot of more people who are winning projects know that they can do things faster than in the past, and they're more willing to take it on. Yeah, probably a combination of those things. I mean, I know that team, it wasn't fun for the end. But you know, it got done well. So I think I haven't heard any horror stories about it just yet. Maybe Adrian's not gonna keep those. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you have done the same project 5 years?
If I could do the same project,
If the same project were 5 years ago, 5 years, yeah, 5 years ago, could you do it as, could you have,
so
that's maybe,
for example, I also work in California. So the benefits of our core team was that help us a lot with the automation of the populating forces and all the other stuff being brought from other structural softwares. So for like a while, there was mostly everything manual. So the same project 5 years ago probably will take a little bit more time. That's what I think.
I agree. I think, you know, TD's been doing huge projects for a long time, but we definitely kick out a stadium faster than we used to. You know, like that's what our clients are asking us to do. And that's what most of the project managers are aiming for. You know, iteration without the overhead of manpower. Any other questions out there? Yeah, we got a hand. I don't know, actually, in this case. I mean, I mentioned that Bluebeam Studio was the first attempt to get a collaborative markup environment going. But you didn't have.
It's a ACC. The problem with ACC again is like you're not gonna believe how many people in TT are still doing paper. So
I mean, in the industry, I hope. I'm just going to say that, right? I think everybody's still making paper markups.
but there are a lot of people, and and also the younger hires that are not very familiar with Autodesk tools. So
Okay. I mean, I would hate it to be the tool that's stopping them using it. But, you know, I will say that, you know, a lot of the things that we end up building are to solve the problem of today without too much thought. I mean, we try to think 5 years down the track. A lot of the things, particularly the stuff, you know, if it's things like JFK, that was, you know, we need a solution yesterday. Let's get it done. I'm sure with more thought, other options could have been investigated. But I mean, Sean told me that other people have seen this in TT and are already doing it themselves. So it's obviously got to be better than what TT has to start with. I don't know what else you could use. It would be great if everything was done in the model, right? That's what we would like. But Revit's not the place to get people to do things. Not markup type of work anyway, I don't think.
What about the it's a design build project, right? There's a parallel process with contractor here that they're in Davis work. So this though was this party. Is that or how did those two things over?
I think it was just IFCs out of the Revit file, right? To those people. So yeah, TT is building as accurate as you can in Revit, and then spitting it out.
for contractors, it's not like kind of beneficial to use Revit because the thing is like the final product Revit is a drawing. So not always what is in drawings is what is in the model. We sometimes need to fix some things and it's not well modeled. So sometimes we provide an AEC that is fine.
Yeah.
And they work with that.
I don't think I ever expect the model to be everything. I mean, maybe if ChatGPT is building it, but there's a gap still between our Revit model and our Tekla model. Did we deliver Tekla on JFK? I think we did, yeah, because I was working with Kansas City getting the models. So that project, we also are modeling fabrication level steel. So we built tools to take a Revit model, not just IFC, like Construe basically does this for us and takes it and builds a native Tekla model. But what we find is even that difference, the Tekla model is going to be really quite different geometrically from the Revit file. So even if you want apples and apples, you're not going to get it. So there's this gap between what we have in Revit. Because we make drawings. That's it.
So,
Revit is a drawing tool for us.
so it's also for documentation. Tekla is horrible.
Yeah.
Because
Little gaps in every software's skill set, and we fill them in with whatever else is. And Tekla does make drawings badly.
they take like probably 10 minutes to open
Yeah.
if it is full of annotations.
I will say, like the Revit's little kingdom is being encroached upon from both ends. Like Rhino's making pretty good drawings these days. Like I've seen lots of architecture students doing sheet layouts.
When I first started in TT, we did the Oxygen Tower and the podium. It was fully made in tech and was the worst experience I have in TT in terms of products.
It was great for us though, because we translated all the force information straight into Tekla. And I think I asked, this was Pete, Joe Sortino, old-time modeler. And he said we saved him a month of work through just translating all the profiles and forces from Revit into Tekla. Construe, yeah. So TT built Construe. We still use it, and it enables us to take a Revit model and a Tekla model and compare them. And then and then camber studs, forces, moment shears, anything that's useful in a structural object, Construe will translate. We have our own tool actually in competition with QNect. We're calling it AutoConnect. But yeah, we have a competitor product to QNect that, again, because we can translate all the information automatically, and because most connection design is a table lookup based on forces, we have projects, and this is why I guess we can deliver more models quickly. The engineers know they can press a button and get a connected Tekla model with the right workflow, which is really powerful. So we've QNect's presented to us a bunch of times. We've shown them our stuff. It's a little bit back and forth. Like we don't want to show them all the good stuff because we're in competition. But we know that that's a big market for us. And because we have a lot of people working in Tekla at TT, we're already doing the work. So yeah. We do translate forces for concrete as well, but the connection design there, I don't know where you do. It's not in Tekla, is it? Somewhere else, probably. I hate to say it, Revit, probably. Maybe. We don't have a custom software for concrete. Yeah. Yeah, but you should give, if you need to move models between Revit and SAP or ETABS, Excel, Rhino, Tekla, Construe links all of those platforms together. Web hosted database, this is, we learned, when we built Ellipse, we were building it on the fact that we built Construe, and we know that web databases are really powerful when you attach them to AEC projects. That's never going to be out in the wild, I wouldn't think. It's big dollar for TT to take that connection design and do it like that for people. So I don't think so. Yeah, QNect's a public company. I mean, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, maybe like somebody bigger would have to buy it for it to go external. questions?
You guys see lips in like a few years.
Where do I see ellipse in a few years from now? Hopefully, you know, preventing some drawing sets from getting printed. Like that's my first step would be like most projects are still going to make these huge sets, but I would love for us to be able to deliver a project to a fabricator as an ellipse report. We don't make a drawing set. So, I mean, a small scale building, we work with the fabricator. I think we could definitely get to a point where this is the drawing set in 5 years. But like Adrian said, there's work in the drawings. You do fill in what's not modeled in the drawings. And I guess the key here is we have the drawing as well. Oops.
When is the next hackathon in New York?
November next year, 2024. We usually host it. Yep, that's this year. So this was November 1 to 5. It's going to be around the same time, I would guess. End of the year. Yeah, feel free. I mean, we have a website, AEC Tech. It has past events. The recordings of all of our AEC Techs are up on YouTube as well, actually, if you want to go look at presentations from last year or previous years. And we generally, post the next year's event middle of the year. I'm still on and I'm still recording, I think. Yeah, we're good. Any people? We got something in the chat maybe here. What we got? That's it.